In this video, we're going to look at contour lines as you see them on an Ordnance Survey map. The first thing is just to talk about the contour lines themselves, first of all. Each one denotes height above sea level, and is always in metres above sea level, each line. And they generally rise in 10-metre intervals. But height on an Ordnance Survey map, we should just also note, is also indicated through colour or shading, from green to brown, so green being closer to sea level and brown being higher all the time. But also you have spot heights, which are individual points on an Ordnance Survey map, which tell you that specific height, as well as triangulation pillars, which are usually on the peaks of mountains. Depending on how close these contour lines are then, will tell you how steep the gradient is, or the slope. So a steep slope and a gentle slope here we can see, very, very steep there to climb up to the peak, rather than the gentle slope here, nice and easy to walk, easy and even slope. So the contour lines tell you this. Tightly packed contour lines here, each one being 10 metres, we will suggest here. So this distance we're travelling over, we'll say 50 metres, we'll just say that distance for the moment, and 50 metres as well. You would see that you have to rise around 100 metres for 10 lines there, so around that. So you have to climb 100 metres just as you travel over 50-metre distance. Whereas here, as you travel over that 50-metre distance, you might only have to rise, we'll say, it's maybe 5 or 6 contour lines there, so 50 or 60 metres. So that's an easier slope, because it's 50 metres to travel from point A to B, but only that distance there, that height I should say, change. A couple of other things just before we look at some other slopes are the index contour is the main numbers that you see on a Ordnance Survey map. So in this example here, they're done in 50 metres. So this would be 0 metres above sea level. This would be 50 metres above sea level, 100, 150, 200, 250 and 300 metres above sea level. The lines themselves obviously are the contour lines. And the gap between the contour lines is called the contour interval. For concave and convex slopes, which you might need to identify on an Ordnance Survey map, it's also based on the contour lines. So for a concave slope, how I like to think about this is that the side of the hill is caved in. So you can see that it's a large distance between the contour lines first of all, as you can see in the top here. This is how you would see it on the Ordnance Survey map. But on the ground, you would travel from here to here, and you'd only have to rise. In this example, we can see 20-metre intervals there. So there's a shorter distance to rise 20 metres, shorter again, shorter, shorter. So that's quite a steep climb there, okay, because it's not a great distance you have to travel to climb that. So as you can see it there, not a great distance to travel before you climb that 20 metre. So there's your concave. Convex is the opposite, so that it's bulging out the hillside. So starting at the bottom, it's steep immediately. So it's a small distance you have to travel before you climb 20 metres, and small distance again. But it starts to level out, you can see there. So there's a large distance there to travel that 20-metre height, or rise that 20-metre height. So convex, and you can see it underneath here. Steep at the base, and then it levels out. Whereas it's leveled out at the bottom, even gentle slope, and then it becomes steeper as you get closer to the peak. We'll look at these here now on an Ordnance Survey map, the actual examples. So we'll compare first of all the steep and a gentle slope. So we're saying if each of these boxes here is 1 square kilometre, so that line from there to there is about 1 kilometre. We're going to estimate that the arrows here are 1 kilometre in and around each. So as you travel this black line, you're having to travel from this contour line here is about 500 metres. So that's about 500 metre height above sea level, slightly higher than that, maybe 510 or 520. But you have to go up to the height of 600 metres, this spot height there. So you have to travel 1 kilometre to rise by around 100 metres from above sea level. If you compare that to the other side there, you have the same distance to travel of 1 kilometre, but you're now coming from about 150 metres above sea level, and you're climbing a much greater distance up to the top. So it's about 600 meters. So there's a rise of 450 meters there from A to B, from the start of the arrow to the end of the arrow, whereas this side you're only climbing about 100 meters. So it's a nice gradual even slope as you climb up there. The contour lines are widely spaced, whereas on this side, right from the off, it's very, very steep because the contour lines are very, very tightly packed. They're actually very, very tightly packed there at the very top there. So it's very steep on this side of the mountain. Comparing these two slopes then, the convex against the concave slope. Remember, the concave slope caves in the hillside. So it's a nice gentle slope to begin with, nice and easy going as you get closer to the base, or I suppose halfway through the arrow there, with the same distance of about 1 kilometre. So you've only risen around maybe 40 meters or something like that, but now you're having to rise quite quickly. So it becomes much steeper then as you get halfway through that hill. So the hillside is caved in. And then convex is it bulges out. So it's steep at the beginning of the hill and then it levels out at the top. If you want to test yourself on these contour lines and what they would actually look like in reality, I've left this page here to compare the left-hand side contour lines as to what it would actually look like at ground level, what you would have to climb. So if you want to pause the video now, you can try to compare or match the number with a letter. On the next page, the answers are available to you. So pause now. And here are your answers. So the first set of contour lines, number 1 is matched with B. So it's an even slope up to a top, then it goes marginally back down and then it starts to rise again. So there you go. Up, back down slightly and up to the top. The second one is very straightforward. It's just relatively even or equal slope either side. So that's 2 is E. So equal slope up to the peak and back down. This one here, both sides, it's like a mirror image there either side. So number 3 matches with D. So up to the top, back down into a passageway there between the two of them, and then up to the top again and back down to the other side of the hill. So there you go. And for construction, for settlements and how this might affect communication links and things like that, road networks, a road network would always go through the gap there, the pass there. 4 matches with C. Okay, so it's steep on the left-hand side, it's an even slope on the right-hand side. So 4 is a steep and even. 5, it's the opposite then of that. So it's an even slope on the left-hand side, steep on the right. So there you go. Even on the left-hand side and steep on the right. Notice how it's flat on the top also, because this whole area here is all an equal height. And 6 here is similar to number 3 above it, but just slightly higher points for each hill on either side there. So that matches with the top one.